It's all the same.
It is. Here we are going live on YouTube. And good morning, everybody. We're here for the healing power of kindness. And thank you, Mickey, for coming in. I knew if y'all heard me, you would come in here. And
It's all the same.
it's all the same. I saw Mickey came into Pal Talk.
Yes, Mickey.
Mickey,
I
Mickey.
did. I figured it out. I'm so proud. I had to jump through a lot of hoops and passwords and codes but I still don't know what to do with Pal Talk. Like I've been listening in on my phone in the Abovecast
Uh-huh. Yeah.
little app. Should I be listening on Pal Talk instead? Is that more reliable?
No, it's
No.
the same
Right, but
because
um,
um
I am always here, and I comment, and we can comment back and forth. You don't have that on the radio.
that's true. In Pal Talk,
Correct.
you
Yes.
actually, yeah. In Pal Talk, you actually can,
Yeah,
uh,
being on messages and listening to Ken.
yeah. So yeah, people are commenting back and forth. You can read their comments and comment along.
There was one person that had like a gabillion comments all in a row, and some of them were just periods.
That's that's
That's Nigel.
that's Nigel in London, and he just comments all the time for books, volumes and volumes. It doesn't mean anything.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. He's Nigel, and he's up and down, up and down, up and down. So sometimes he's very, very active and busy and commenting, and other times he's not. And but we listen to him and we love him, and we know that
We can,
uh, yeah,
Because he's part of our mind.
that's right.
yes. He says, no matter what, I don't believe any of it.
All right, so here's where I have the bookmark. Can you guys see the book
Yeah,
on the screen? Okay,
uh,
and
Yep.
I'd like
Dr.
to pray us in
All right, thank you,
first.
Mickey.
And actually, Lynn, I'd like to start on the paragraph right in front of that one, if you don't mind, because it kind of will bring it bring us back to our only function is to forgive. So it kind of pulls it in where it says as students. So
As students. So we
yeah,
got you there.
okay. So I'm going to go ahead and pray us in. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do because he who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever he wishes, knowing he goes there with me. I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal. And that's in the text in chapter 28. And that was given to Bill Thetford. So thank you. So I'll go ahead and start the reading, Lynn, if that's okay with you. And that'll be in the book on page 108. As students of A Course in Miracles, we are asked first to learn and practice its teachings. Once we do, the love we have made room for will work through us. Whenever you feel you have important work to do in this world, a specific function Jesus has given you, you should smile knowingly and gently, realizing your ego has done it again. Your only function is to forgive. Whenever you think there is something else you are supposed to do, run as quickly as you can away from yourself. If someone tells you of your function, run even faster because they will be wanting something from you. No one has any important work they are supposed to do that differs from anyone else's. It would make no sense to think otherwise about a world that does not exist. Our only important work is to change the mind that thinks there is a world, let alone something important that needs to be done within it. This does not mean, however, that you do not do things here. Our bodies would not long exist if they did not function. The question is, however, who is the agent of the functioning, the ego or the Holy Spirit? You know it is your ego if you think what you are doing is important, or if what you are doing is unimportant because it is not what others do. The ego blesses either alternative, for it thrives on the comparisons of specialness. When you compare yourself with others, wherein you are important and they are not, because Jesus gave you a special assignment, or you think you are the dregs of the earth because everyone else has assignments and you have nothing important to do, it is the same thing. For you see differences where there are none. An illusion dressed in blue is no different from an illusion dressed in red. An illusion dressed in importance, which is really self-importance, is no different from an illusion dressed in non-importance. Anything that makes a perception of differences real must be of the ego. The only way you should think of yourself as having an important function is to realize everyone else has an important function too, forgiveness. Remember, anything that differentiates from you from another must be of the ego. There is nothing else you need to know. All limitations are inherently the same in content and purpose. And so I'll stop here. And, you know, right now on this paragraph makes me think of what's on the news worldwide on that France's rape trial with Gazelle Petitcott. And, you know, I watched a lot of different news stations on it from France and in America because it's worldwide. And I saw myself as I was stepping back and looking at it, I saw myself judging, using judgment there. And then I asked for help and I realized that the only importance in this is forgiveness. And, you know, Dr. Schuckman spoke about celestial speed up. And it, you know, it could be within the illusion, within the dream, that there's a celestial speed up because this is worldwide getting known, that laws within the dream, within the illusion could be changed for the better. And that through this, people will able to be step up on the rungs of the ladder, just like learning about forgiveness, Al-Anon groups, how it, you know, self-reflects and has you stop pointing the finger at others and looking at yourself. So it's been an interesting classroom for myself in this. And, you know, not to judge Gazelle when she said she wouldn't forgive her husband and the children said they wouldn't forgive him. And then one of the perpetrators asked for forgiveness. And so it's been interesting. So would anyone like to comment on this paragraph that we just read on forgiveness is really our only function here?
Mickey has her hand up.
Mickey, go ahead.
Hi, thanks. I know absolutely nothing about that thing in France that you were just talking about. Good thing I don't watch the news because I would get sucked into judgment and would have to go through a whole thing about it. But I was listening to the Ken lecture this morning, and he was talking about somebody asked him if Course in Miracles groups where, because there was something, can't remember how it all started, but there was something about, don't turn this into a religion. And they asked about groups. And he said, if you want to study with a group or you want to study on your own, it makes no difference. The benefit of studying in a group is to see where your triggers come up. He didn't say it exactly like that, but that was the concept, that the only reason we're hanging out here together studying the course is so that we can see where we have judgments, or if a trigger comes up, or like I just said before, like, who's this person that, posts nothing, paragraphs on the Pal Talk board. I had a judgment about that. And whether or not that was valid, whether or not our judgments about what was going on in that trial is valid, it's useful information for us to look at and see what is it in ourselves that's making that judgment. So I think, and I burst out laughing again. I'm so glad, Michale, that you went back to that previous paragraph where Ken talks about, if somebody thinks that their function is important in this world, run. And if they think they have a function for you in this world, run even further. You have to really appreciate Ken's sense of humor, because he should have been a stand-up comedian as far as I'm concerned. But I will pass to whoever wants to talk again.
Thank you, Mickey. I love your comment on that. And yeah, I mean, I'm glad I went back to that paragraph too, because I was judging, and I was looking at this trial. It's a huge rape trial that in France, and this woman was unconscious, and her husband advertised her on the internet for over 10 years. And there's over 50 plus men that they have got on video that abusing her and raping her, including her husband. So it's a very interesting trial. And yes, I was judging it. And then here I am, a Course in Miracles student, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, well, maybe this is all happening because she had this function. And I caught myself. She had this function where she was going to change the laws in this particular dream for the betterment. And then I read that paragraph, where Ken said, if you think you have some kind of special function other than forgiveness, really run. And I mean, it's so then I realized that I was judging, and I didn't see that I was judging. So it was really a blessing to me to be able to see that I was judging. And, I don't know what the purpose is for all of it except forgiveness. So if anyone else would like to, I see Lynn's hand is up. So please go ahead, Lynn.
All right. Thank you so much. Wow. Yeah, this is, you mentioned that trial. I've avoided looking at that. After the first moment I looked at it and saw, oh, this is what this is about. This guy was drugging his wife and pimping her out to, all the people in town, or anybody anywhere. It's crazy. Once I saw that, I'm like, wow, that is, how am I doing something like that? How am I doing something like that instead of looking at it and judging it? Because it wouldn't be in my consciousness if I wasn't doing something as well. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm, abusing people and, it doesn't mean that I'm doing those things, but I am somehow in my daily life or in my thinking, um, taking advantage of people, or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. Whatever it is that I judged of that person is something that I have to look at myself. And that's the function. It has nothing to do with the specifics of the situation. It could be I'm looking at my neighbor who's abusing animals, and I'm thinking about their guilt, and um, not uh, not forgiving that, not forgiving my idea that something is happening here that should not be happening. And this is it's the crazy thing about the dream. We made up a dream where bad things happen. We made up a dream where people are victims. We made up a dream where people are victimizer. We made up a dream where people are victorious. We made up a dream, and all those V's that we put into that dream really are just our story about what we believe, what I believe, um, uh, is possible. This would only be possible if I was, not in heaven. This would only be possible if I was not performing my function correctly. This would only be it's only be possible if I was in a world that God didn't create. So that's really all I have to remember. Not that, somebody did a bad thing, because if I got looking at all the people that I thought did bad things, there would be not a second in the instant in the day. I would be up day and night, night and day, night, looking at all the bad things that seem to be happening. Even when I said, I'm not going to watch the news anymore, as I hear Mickey saying, I'm not going to watch the news, because the news itself is just bringing to my doorstep all the guilt that I'm projecting out in the world. It's being brought to me over and over and over. And in every little thing that I see, I'm experiencing my own sense of guilt for what I think has been done, or what I think I have done. So, I don't have to watch the news to see that. But then when I stopped watching the news, I started looking at other things. I go on TikTok. I love TikTok. I'm scrolling along through TikTok, and oh, here's somebody did something wrong to somebody. Here's a Karen who's bitching somebody out for parking in the wrong place. Here's a handicapped person who's being attacked for not having a visible handicap and parking in the handicap place. Here's uh, someone who's not being a good parent to their children, and their children are suffering for it. It's I can't not see guilt wherever I look. Why is that? Because that's what I'm looking for. This is what the ego is looking for everywhere, in everything. And so uh now what I say is, oh, here I go. Here comes the judgments again. Here come the judgments again. And I can look at it, recognize that, this is just a projection of my own thinking. Nothing is really happening here, and I can let it go. And it's hard to think about it when you think about, children are being abused. The minute the idea of children are being abused comes into my mind, I get upset. Or animals are being abused, I get upset. Somebody's tied their dog outside, their dog is howling outside, I get upset. So I don't need to look at the news to look to see guilt. I don't need to look at my neighbors to see guilt. All I have to do is look at my own mind and recognize that I'm the one who's putting that there, so that I can keep on blaming God for not letting me back in heaven, and allowing this crazy creation to go on. I blame God for it, and instead of blaming my own crazy thinking, making up a story that these things could really be true. So anyway, those are some of my thoughts about that. And I see that Mickey has her hand up again.
There we go. Couldn't remember which key to push. So I just realized, Lynn, while you were saying that I don't not look at the news because I'm too holy to watch the news, or I'm above it. I don't watch the news because I know it's going to trigger me, and I know it's going to put my feelings of guilt right in my face, and I'm uncomfortable with that. In this one circumstance, I would like to be more like Teddy Poppy, who said he laughed at it. He could, he was always talking about how ridiculous everybody was being by taking all of that seriously. If I'm remembering correctly, that's from a long time ago. But yeah, I want to get to that point where I can watch things like that and realize that it's just all part of the dream and it's all for our awakening. But I am so not there yet. And I'm like Lynn, I really like TikTok, but I have curated my TikTok. TikTok, the algorithm, if you stop on anything, it thinks you like that and it gives you more of it. So if you stop to read something about, somebody abusing somebody else, it will feed you more of that. At this point, my TikTok is mainly videos of dachshunds because I think they're hysterical. Yeah, all I get is dance moves and dachshunds. So that's how much of an aversion I have to seeing anything that I perceive as disturbing. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to look at that aspect of the dream because I find it very disturbing. And that to me shows me how much I have not moved forward in all of this. So, I was just congratulating myself this morning about how I was really, really digging on when Prudence plays the portion of the text, and we're in chapter 31. I forget the name of the section that we read this morning. And I was like, it was self-concept versus self. And I was like, wow, a few years ago, I couldn't even read this section because it was just gibberish to me. And now I love this section. Look how far I've come. Hardy har har. Not really Mick, because now we're talking about this news thing, or we're talking about disturbing things coming up on TikTok. And I'm like, yeah, not that far, babe, because you still can't look at the ugly things in this world and be at peace. So there you go. More for me to learn. Thanks.
Thank you, Mickey. And just a brief aside here before we go on. That reading every day, I put that up in the banner in Pal Talk. So I have a reading schedule that I keep on Excel spreadsheet, and every day there's a reading. So I put it up there so that everybody knows what the reading of the day is. So if you go on Pal Talk now, you'll see that it's up there in the banner. Self-concept versus self. Anyway, besides the point. That's it, Uh, I can congratulate myself that I can read a whole page of A Course in Miracles and not fall asleep. Because that used to be my thing. It was like, it would hypnotize me and I would be like out of it. Not not because I wasn't interested, but because it's just too much for the ego. It doesn't want to read this stuff. So we really have to get used to it. But this is the same thing with the news. when I was a little kid, I never saw the news, or I did, my folks would watch it in the evening, the Huntley and Brinkley, remember those two guys? And, it was a big deal. I remember when, we were, Irish Catholic, and, JFK was running for president. I was all excited. I must have been, that was in what, 1960 there. So I was like
63, I think, or
63. So
64. There's two, or, early 60s.
yeah, early 60s. So yeah, I was born in 53. So I was just a little kid, but I was all excited about, getting an Irish Catholic president, and how exciting it was for everybody to have that happening, now I look at Joe Biden, Irish Catholic president. Nobody said a thing about it or thought a thing about it now. But back then it was a big deal. It was a big deal because people hated Irish people and people hated Catholics. So, in my mind, that it was me against the world. But anyway, the whole thing being, I had to learn that this was what, was important. This is what the world thinks is important. This is what the world thinks is good. This is what the world thinks is bad. And so I was inundated with, the ego thought system, and about guilt, and shame and fear and all those kind of things. So we're slowly becoming uninundated. We're slowly, breaking the ties from that that world, and learning to see it in a different kind of way. And that's what's so important about this work that we're doing, because when I forgive, the world changes. When I forgive, the world changes. And that's what Jesus guarantees us in the Course. This is not a fantasy. When I see differently, the world will be different. So that's, the world is only showing me what it is that I asked to see. So if I see something, I get fascinated by it or involved in it, it's because that's what I asked to see and I want to see. Um, so it's looking at my mind and seeing, why do I want this, or do I want this? And recognizing that I really don't want it. And until I can actually recognize that I don't want it, I'll keep seeing it. So, you wonder why the world seems to be going to hell. It's because that's what you want to see. And I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad, because, it's the human condition. It's the ego world. This is how it works. But understand that it's only being shown to you because that's what you ask for. And you will be given exactly what you asked for, because um, there's that that's how the world works. It's not a it's not a it's not it doesn't go on by itself. It only works because I fuel it. Anyway, I'll stop talking now and turn it back over to Mickey.
Okay, well, thank you, Mickey. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you for your comments. Yeah, it's all a classroom, right? And if you notice any reaction in yourself, then it's your classroom to take a look at that. So it's constantly turning, looking at ourselves inwardly. So I'll go ahead and start the next reading. As Jesus asks us to do, we bring to him our misperceptions, understanding that we perceive them because we want to make differences real. For in this way, we keep our separate and special identities. We need only be aware of how almost everything we do, say, feel, or think is separating, for it does not embrace all people as one. Where we see everyone fulfilling a common need and sharing a common goal. We should not, however, judge ourselves for our limited sight, but rather look at these misperceptions and realize why we chose them. This is the true meaning of asking for help, which cannot be accomplished without understanding the Course's underlying metaphysics that the world of separation is an illusion. A clear grasp of that principle keeps us from getting caught in the special relationship in any of its forms. Spiritual specialness is the worst of these because of its sanctimonious air of holiness and importance. We never quite realize how divisive and attacking specialness is, and in this regard, it is helpful to keep in mind that A Course in Miracles itself is an illusion. Without question, it is a most helpful one, but the Course remains what it is, a collection of words and concepts. Just as people have killed themselves over the Bible, people are very close to killing each other over this Course, if not physically yet, as far as I know, certainly psychologically. This would never happen if its form were not taken so seriously. In conclusion, we should take the loving content of A Course in Miracles seriously, but not its form, for then we would realize that love is perfect oneness, which includes everyone. It is essential we be aware of how much we want to cling to our limitations or the limitations of others, and our resistance to letting the ego's thought system go. What helps us ascend the ladder of forgiveness is forgiving ourselves for not wanting to ascend the ladder. We are hindered in our climb not by our perceived limitations, defects, or imperfections, but by our failure to look at them through the gentle eyes of kindness that see no grounds for judgment. Thus are we freed of the barriers to the free flow of love through our limited selves, the means whereby we learn to remember the limitlessness of God's Son. And we just have one more paragraph on conclusion. So I'll go ahead and stop here right now, and then Lynn, if that's okay with you, then we'll finish the book in today's class. So I love how Ken brought up oneness here, especially towards the end of the book. And he always says in a lot of his talks is to ask yourself, does it include everyone? And so if it doesn't, then you're really making a judgment. So would anyone like to comment on this? I see Mickey's hand is up, so please go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, this is great. This is also so much tying in with Ken's talk that we listened to this morning, because he's talking about, form and content. We should be loving the content in A Course in Miracles, not, the book or even Helen and Bill. We shouldn't, put on a pedestal and make idols. But he was talking about this morning, he was talking about there were people, especially in the beginning there, who thought we should put a copy of the Course in the nightstand of every motel and hotel in the country, just like the Bible. And that's the same thing. That's worshiping the form instead of the content. So another joke from Uncle Ken about how we look at this Course and how sometimes we can even put it up on a pedestal and make an idol of it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mickey. That that was kind of coming from Tara Singh to Ken Wapnick. I had to, because Tara Singh had that more where it's kind of a guru, although he was Krishnamurti was his teacher, who you kind of don't follow anyone with Krishnamurti. There are no gurus. But so I had to really look at myself towards the Course in Miracles, because Ken helped me to realize exactly what you were saying, that, not to make the Course, the book, into an idol. So thank you for bringing that up. I really appreciate that. And I see Lynn's hand is up, so please go ahead, Lynn.
Yeah, thank you guys for this. And I love this, what Ken is saying about the form of the course, because as we all well know, that has been uh, uh, hijacked and rearranged. And look at how many people now have come up with their own version of the course. You have the sparkly, which is Teddy's idea of what it should be, and you have the purple book, the Robert Perry book, where he took every little crumpled note that Helen might have written that he could find, and threw it in there, whether it should have been part of the course or not, doesn't really matter. Uh, there are several others that you can buy several versions of A Course in Miracles, and that they fought for years to keep it as Jesus had intended, which is the one that the FIP published, and eventually Ken finally just said, to heck with it, it doesn't matter as long as it says you practice forgiveness and forgive the world. What does it matter what the form is? Ken learned that lesson himself, and in that final workshop that he did, which was uh, 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 what was it called? Something about the ego. Anyway, it was all about just let go of these ideas that we have, that things should be a certain way, and there's a certain form of teaching of the course. There's a certain form of studying the course. There's a certain form of experience in the course. There's whatever form it is. It's the form that you learn to forgive. And, once you realize that that's the only important thing about all of it, then any version of the course is going to work for you, because it is all the same. But there were people, I mean, honestly, it's talk about, fighting and, to the death, that I personally was, such a purist when I first started, thinking that any other version of it was a sacrilege or a heresy. And, I was adamant and very angry with people who, messed, I was pissed off at Teddy. I was pissed off at Robert Perry. I was pissed off anybody who, who decided they liked, a different version better than the one that, Jesus authorized. You know, Jesus really doesn't give a shit about, which version, because as Ken says right here, it's an illusion too. And that's why in that famous paragraph in lesson 135, he says, put down this course. Come to your God with holy empty hands. Do what the course tells you, and then let it go, because a it's not a sacred book. These are not sacred words. Words cannot possibly be sacred because they're part of the dream. So I love this. And uh, uh, taking the ego lightly was the name of the workshop. Taking the ego lightly, and it was all about, let's not be so serious about this stuff to the point where we're in arguments with each other over it. Excuse me. And the people still argue with Ken, who's dead. You know, it just cracks me up, and I know now Teddy knows better, because he's he's gone beyond this as well, and I'm sure we'll all learn better, once we figure that out. Anyway, that's all I really have to say, and I'll turn back to you, Mickey.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you. And that was really nice, you bringing that up. And yeah, it's the same content. It's about forgiveness. And so, it's my classroom too, and what you brought up, not to judge, any of it. What is the purpose? Or the purpose is it's the same content. So I don't see any other hands up. So I'll go ahead and read the conclusion, and then if anyone would like to comment, and then I'll end with a prayer for the Christmas season from the Gifts of God, a beautiful closing prayer from Dr. Schuckman. So the conclusion: from limitation to limitlessness, as we ascend the ladder, we are blessed by having both the means and end within us. The Holy Spirit's love is the means that leads us to God's love, which is the end. The darkened shadows of our limited selves, so hated and scorned, whether perceived in ourselves or projected onto others, are transformed through forgiveness into beacons of light, illuminating our journey. Christ's vision has revealed their new purpose, and what was made to represent hate and fear has become the means to take us to our home, where love awaits us in quiet joy. We close by reading Lesson 302. The first part is our prayer to God, echoing the prayer to ourselves that we forgive the love that needs no forgiveness, accepting the holiness that lies just beyond the belief in limitation and lack. In the lesson's second part, Jesus instructs us that God is the only truth and love our only goal. Yet this love is within us as we make our way to the love that is ourself. It is that love to which we return. At the same time, it is that love we experience on life's detours that lead us through limitation to the limitless. And so we do not short circuit our experiences in the world, but allow them to be used by love, represented by Jesus, who walks with us up the ladder until we are home. Limitation having dissolved into limitlessness as God's Son returns to God's Son. Where darkness was, I look upon the light. Father, our eyes are opening at last. Your holy world awaits us as our sight is finally restored and we can see. We thought we suffered, but we had forgot the Son whom you created. Now we see that darkness is our own imagining, and light is there for us to look upon. Christ's vision changes darkness into light, for fear must disappear when love has come. Let me forgive your holy world today, that I may look upon its holiness and understand it but reflects my own. Our love awaits us as we go to him and walks beside us, showing us the way. He fails in nothing, he the end we seek, and he the means by which we go to him. And what a beautiful ending to this book that Ken wrote, The Healing Power of Kindness, Volume 2, Forgiving Our Limitations, the Practice of A Course in Miracles. He really ended it like you would end a symphony, a song, the way that he wrote that beautiful prayer from the Course in there at the end. So it's a beautiful ending, and I have a prayer from the Gifts of God, but before I read that from Dr. Schuckman on resurrection, would anyone like to comment here? No? Okay, I'll go ahead and read the poem from Dr. Schuckman. So it's called The Place of Resurrection, and it's on page 99 in her book, The Gifts of God. There is an altar that I seek, for there and only there can certain peace be found. The light of holiness shines white upon its cooling stillness, wretched with lilies round. Here is the place where those who thought that death was Lord of life must come, to learn of one who seemed to die, that life is Lord of death. Beside the lilies, sickly dreams are gone, and stillness spreads a blanket over all, who seem to know no rest and find no peace, to bring the quiet and the dreamless sleep, in which their dreaming will forever cease. Here we awake, my brothers and myself, for all of us come here to find the way, to waken from the dream of sin the world was made to represent. We come to lay our guilt beside the altar and step back, putting illusions and mistakes aside, and learn before an empty tomb to see he is not dead who here was crucified. The gifts of God, the place of resurrection. Dr. Helen Schuckman. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mickey. What a
Thank you.
beautiful poem. Thank you for reading that one. And of course, anybody else who wants to share. All right. Well, we will be starting, the next book is going to be Healing and, or not Healing, Forgiveness in Jesus. And I will go and find it and buy it so that we'll have it on our Kindle as well. And I think I even actually have it in a hard copy here, but it'll be good to have it um, on the Kindle as well. So thank you all once again for hanging out with us, and I guess I'll go ahead and close out the YouTube.